Hey everyone, welcome to part 10 of this Dark Urge Tactician mode guide for Baldur's Gate 3. In this episode, we're going to be focusing on the Rosymorn Monastery and getting all the way up to the Githyanki Creche. So starting off in the Rosymorn Monastery trail, we're going to run forward and then over toward the right, which is toward the east, and if you keep going around, you're going to find Lady Esther over here. We don't really want to talk to her. All she really wants us to do is to steal a Githyanki egg. So instead we're going to go around behind her and then we can start to sneak. We're going to then try to pickpocket her because she does have a lot of good stuff on her. The first thing that I'm looking at is the Periapt of Wound Closure. When we're downed, we automatically stabilize at the start of the turn, and whenever we are healed, we restore the maximum number of possible hit points. This is a really good necklace that we can wear that will allow us to have a lot of survivability, especially on a harder difficulty like Tactician mode. Before trying to steal anything, I would definitely recommend saving the game just in case she spots you. So once we steal that, we can also grab the supply pack that she has. She also has a potion of invisibility. Those always come in handy. Some thieves' tools and trap disarm toolkits are nice. The scroll of wall of fire is very useful, especially later on against a certain boss fight. And really anything else that you want, go ahead and try to steal it. We eventually will be fighting her, so if there's something that you don't get, there is a chance that you can loot it from her body after we take her out. There's a good chance that she'll notice you when you're going through this and she might start walking away. We're just going to follow right behind her, staying behind her, and then we can keep on stealing from here. So just keep going through, taking whatever you want to from her, and eventually she'll notice you and that will start the fight. Or of course you can get the preemptive start of the fight if you want to use a sneak attack against her. She can confuse her party members, and in my case, she confused 3 out of 4 of my party members, and the Dark Urge was not affected, but then I tried to get close to her, and she was able to detect the presence and pull him into the fight, and now everyone around here is going to be attacking each other, and it's just kind of a weird situation, but eventually that will wear off, and then I'm able to fight normally. I've regained control with the Dark Urge and Karlach, so I'm just going to use a normal attack against her, and if you can get her to break her concentration, then the confusion will end automatically for whoever was affected by that. So you'll see here, I do get her to break that concentration, and that gives me control over my other party members as well. It's Gale's turn, so I'm going to hit her with a magic missile. I only have a level 2 spell slot remaining, so I'll use a level 2 magic missile, and it will do a lot of damage to her, bringing her from 47 health all the way down to 12. I still have a bonus action, so I might as well use that to use an offhand melee attack to do a little more damage, bringing her down to 10 health, and now it's just up to Karlach to finish the fight. So now that she's gone, I get 75 experience for everyone, and I can loot her body to grab things like the Graceful Cloth, a really good piece of equipment, and some other things. So let's grab everything that we want to from here, and then we can keep on going. Well, as I just said, I have no more spell slots with Gale, and I don't have any more short rests to even heal myself, so I'm going to go back to camp and use a long rest, and that will give me all my health back as well as the spell slots that I'm missing. So, Karlach's over here. Let's go and have a little chat with her.
Hey, soldier, Well, I'm not feeling so good. My engine is getting worse. Feels like it's going to burst out of my chest. We need to catch up with Damon. See if he's thought of a way to fix this thing. If it can be fixed.
Don't worry, we'll find him.
I'm sure we will. But, in case we don't, a bit of advice. You leave your left flank wide open. If I'm ever not around to cover it, you may find yourself on the wrong side of a goblin spear one of these days.
Okay, well after that conversation, we're going to go over and choose to go to bed. We're going to use a long rest using all of our 80 supplies that we need to, and then we can have a little scene where this time we'll be visited by the Owlbear cub.
You recognize the feathered creature. It's the Owlbear cub you rescued.
Fetch a piece of food from your bag.
The cub's eyes lock onto the food in your hand.
Toss the food to the Owlbear.
The creature gulps the food down. It seems he hasn't eaten in some time.
What a delectable little pet. Oh, now look. You've scared off the little snack.
Don't worry, we'll see the Owlbear come again. Well, now that we are fully rejuvenated, let's leave the camp and go back to the Rosymorn Monastery trail. What we want to do now is to save the game because we do have a fairly difficult fight ahead of us, and we just want to have that little bit of a safety net. Let's continue to run back the way that we came up these stairs, and then when we get up to the top by this wagon, we're going to turn to the right. But be careful because there's a lot of enemies up ahead, so we can walk carefully forward. Might want to do some sneaking to get closer, and then we want to initiate a fight against these enemies before they can see us. So let's use our sneak attack range to get off an attack on this Death Shepherd as he walks through, and that will do some decent damage against him and start the fight. Now there are a lot of little guys in this fight too. We've got a couple larger Death Shepherds and some ghasts that run around here. The ghasts will basically just run forward and then try to use melee attacks against you. The Death Shepherds have a few more tools in their toolkit. They can not only attack you, but they can also buff the enemies. They can call them back from the undead, and they really should just be your primary target in the early part of the fight. You definitely want to take out those Death Shepherds first because they represent a much bigger threat overall. Even though they might not be spending every turn attacking you, they can make this fight go on a lot longer than what you really want it to go. So definitely want to use that Singing Sword Shriek with the Failure Louve with Astarion so that everything running into this area will be extra affected by the attacks that we're doing. Hitting them with that little bit of extra lightning damage really does add up. And then you can see that I silence that Death Shepherd. That's going to really shut him down and make it a lot harder for him to buff the enemies and to be a nuisance to us. With the other characters, I really just have to kill the enemies as they get close to me. So I just want to attack them as much as possible. I'll use Frenzy with Karlach with the bonus action, just that she has a little bit more to work with. And then I just have to wait for all these enemies to run toward me. And they're going to spend their first turn or two just trying to get close. That gives me a good advantage to try to knock out these enemies before they can get even close to me and do a lot of damage. On Gale's first turn, I definitely want to cast Haste on myself so that for the rest of this fight, I will have an extra action allowing me to cast 2 spells every turn with him, and that's going to add up to a lot of extra damage. And now I just want to go back to using Magic Missile. I can get by with a level 2 spell for now. I can save that level 3 for a little bit later. So I'll attack this ghoul nearby, and then I can attack the Death Shepherd. Remember, try to focus him down as best as possible. I did give Gale the Cull the Weak Illithid power, and that way, even if I don't kill one of these weaker enemies, as long as I get them down to within just a couple HP points remaining, they're still going to die and explode and do damage to the other enemies nearby. So that's a nice way to kill enemies, even if you didn't quite get enough damage to finish them off. Well, here goes another turn where the Ghast and the Ghouls and the Death Shepherds all keep running toward me right into that Failure Louve, and that will allow me to do some extra damage to them. Definitely want to use Counter Spell against the Death Shepherds if they're nearby and try to cast a magic spell. We want to shut them down so that they can't make things worse for us. And that's pretty much the gist of this fight. It's just a matter of taking out the enemies in melee range now, using those melee attacks. Hopefully you actually hit them, unlike me. And then when it's Gale's turn, you're able to use 2 different Magic Missile casts every turn, and you get a lot of benefits by using Magic Missile. Not only does it do a ton of damage, but you can also split the missiles up to attack different enemies. So if there's a couple enemies that are pretty weak, you can take out 2, maybe even 3 enemies at the same turn, depending on how much health they have left. So I'm going to just let it play out from here, and then I will catch up with you when the fight is over in just a minute. Did you see that? Gale just killed 3 enemies on the same turn. I'd say that's pretty good. Now we only have 1 enemy left. It's this ghoul, so I'm just going to have the Dark Urge run forward and attack it, and that will be the end of this fight. Alright, there we go. The big fight in this area is over, and I didn't even take that much damage. So go through, loot all the bodies that you want to in this area, and then what we can do is just run forward. There's going to be a dead zealot of the Absolute that you can look at. He's got a missive from Moonrise. That's a little bit of lore there. Take whatever you want from him. Now the path to the left, you don't need to go down. That takes you over into Act 2, and we don't want to do that just yet. So instead, if you run up this path, you can go past a couple of dead Githyanki youths. We don't really need to talk to them because they don't really have anything on them. And then the bridge is out in front of us, so we can't go this way. Instead, I'll show you the other way that you can use to get down more quickly, all the way down to the Rosymorn Monastery. So we're heading back kind of the same direction that the Esther was. Just be prepared that there's a couple of repulsion mines on the ground. They are pretty easy to disarm though. They only have a skill check of 10, so it's pretty easy to get through this without much issue. However, on the third one, I was not successful, but it doesn't really matter on this because it didn't do anything to me even when I set it off. So I failed to disarm this one properly, and it just exploded but didn't do anything to me. Okay, now what we're going to do is continue on down the path, and then we're going to stick over toward the left side. Just stay on the left path, and then you'll eventually see some kind of stairs and a little pathway going down here. Let's go all the way to the bottom, and then switch over to Karlach, a strength-based character. And she's going to then be able to use this cable car wheel. With that strength bonus, we're able to roll this level 15 skill check pretty easily, and then that will call the cable car up to us. I'm going to speed it up just because it takes a while for it to get up there, and then we'll load all of our characters onto the cable car, and then use that wheel again to lower us to the bottom. Astarion and Gale can have an interesting conversation as you go down, so feel free to listen to that. And then when you get down to the bottom of the cable car path, we're going to exit the cable car and then follow the path around to the left. Just hug that left wall, and that's going to take you where you want to go.
Quite the opposite. Some monastic orders celebrated their pungency as proof of their devotion. To think is to stink, was the motto of one ill-fated brotherhood near Arm.
When you get around that corner, just keep going forward, and eventually you'll see that there's going to be a waypoint here. And about this time, we're going to head back to camp because I do want to put Lae'zel in the party. So heading over to camp, we're just going to continue around, and we're going to head down the path. She's going to be just past Karlach and then turn left, and you'll see her way at the end down here. There's no important dialogue. I'm just going to invite her to join the team and take Karlach's place. Now let's go back up to the campsite. We're going to choose to end the day, and that will take us into the nighttime portion where we can then have a long rest. We'll use our camp supplies to take that full long rest, and that will give me all my health back, but more importantly, my spell slots with Gale after that large fight. We get a cutscene with the Owlbear cub returning, so let's go through this one.
The cub holds out his leg, revealing a ragged wound.
Let's be nice to him. I'm going to choose Medicine, attempt to heal the injury. That gives me a skill check of 10. Let's roll that one and then keep going and get some approval.
As the wound closes, the cub begins testing his weight on the leg.
Adorable. Let me know when it brings you something fresh.
Alright, and now we got the Owlbear cub to join our camp permanently. That's all that I want to do here in camp, so I'm going to go ahead and leave the camp area to return right back where we were outside of the Rosymorn Monastery. Now that we have Lae'zel in the party, we're just going to continue along the path toward the east. When you get to the end of it, there's going to be a shortcut scene that you can just skip right through. There's no dialogue options or anything associated with this one, so we'll blaze right through this and then we can continue on.
Silent! No! Anyone want as I...
Forward.
Now let's turn and go toward the north so that we can get into this entryway area. On the left side, there's going to be some broken stairs and a window that we can go inside of. I would recommend that you separate the Dark Urge from everyone else, and now we can jump up into the window, and we're going to go in and eliminate a whole big group of enemies and do it solo. So you can see the enemies around here will kind of be falling asleep and stuff. It's a good idea to save the game before we actually engage with them, just in case something goes wrong in this fight. But we're basically going to do the whole thing very stealthily and get a lot of experience for doing it. Now that we have successfully saved the game and we're ready to go, we're going to use a sneak attack melee against the sleeping enemy, taking him out. And now we can run inside this door and then close it so that the enemy can't escape. Now we're going to sneak attack melee the other sleeping enemies around here. Now be careful though, because what you want to make sure is that you don't use 2 sneak attacks on the same turn. As you'll remember, the Deathstalker Mantle will only grant that invisibility once every turn. So wait until that sneak attack option comes back. It says available next turn. That's a good way to know that your timing is correct with this, so that you can always reapply that stealth. We're just going to go around and kill all of the enemies that we can as stealthily as possible, just killing them one at a time. This one does manage to get away, but I can quick toggle over to the sneak attack ranged to take this one out at a distance. Now keep in mind that when you're not in turn-based mode, every turn is 6 real-life seconds. So at most, you have 12 seconds after you attack before your invisibility goes away. So you have to act pretty quickly, but you really just have to wait 6 seconds until you can do that next attack and you can reapply your invisibility. So at this point, the enemy is going to come around. I honestly don't know why I didn't get the invisibility at this point. I did enough damage, I killed him, but I was still seen for some reason. Not a big deal though, because when battle commences, I can reuse a sneak attack, and that will be enough to take out an enemy, reapplying my invisibility. I'll be able to run out of the way, because the enemy believes that I'm where I was before. It's the last place that they saw me, so they'll go to investigate it. They're going to look around, they're going to try to detect my hidden presence, but I'm not anywhere around there, so they can't do it, and the battle will be over at that point. Now all I have to do is to wait until that sneak attack range comes back, and then I can shoot the guy up here and do some damage to him. I didn't quite get enough. He still has 1 HP remaining. I can just follow that up with another attack like my offhand ranged, and he's going to be dead. I'm invisible again. Now let's climb up this ladder so that we can get up to a higher vantage point, and that will allow us to look down on the enemy and shoot him the next turn. This last enemy is going to dash around to where he believes that I am, but I'm not there, so when he tries to detect me, he won't find anything. And then I just have to use another sneak attack ranged attack to shoot him from up high, and he's going to be gone, and that will end the fight, and all of these enemies were eliminated. I didn't take any damage, and we got tons of experience for doing it this way. Now what we want to do is to get our party members back together, and they're going to rejoin us in this room, and we're going to continue on from this point. Now there is a puzzle up ahead that requires us to collect 3 ceremonial weapons from the Rosymorn Monastery. One of the kobold looters in this area will have the ceremonial mace. So go around, grab that mace, and then we can continue on toward the north side of the room. Just run around these barrels and you'll get to the stairs at the end, and you can go up the stairs and keep going toward the north. There's going to be a little cliff here. You just want to jump over onto the next side, and then we can continue up these ledges. When you get to the top, then turn around and go around toward the right. There's going to be another little drop down that you can take here. So jump down to the lower level, and then we're going to continue on toward the south. You'll find a barricaded door here. All you have to do is get close enough to have a perception check. One of your party members needs to see it, and then switch over to someone like Lae'zel, who has very strong melee attacks, and you're able to break through it in 1 or 2 attacks. So once you've broken through there, we're going to keep going on into the monastery, and then we're going to turn toward the left and get over to this point. And here we have a little bit of a choice to make. On the left side, there's going to be a puzzle room. There's going to be a lot of altars around here, and we have to place those ceremonial weapons around here. Ultimately, what that will do is on the north side of the room, there will open up a spot in the wall where we can get something that's needed to get a legendary weapon. But if you can pass a perception check, then you'll find a stone wall here, and if you interact with it, you will get a sleight of hand skill check looking for a 30. That's pretty difficult to do, so I wouldn't really recommend trying that. Instead, if you have Gale and you want to take the shortcut and not do the puzzle, just have him use the knock spell. That will automatically open up the stone wall, and behind it will reveal a pouch. If you open up the pouch, then what you'll see is there's a note to the next Dawnmaster and the Dawnmaster's crest. Grab those things, and then you'll get 30 experience points and what you need to get the Blood of Lathander. While this is a nice shortcut, we can get a lot more experience by actually collecting those ceremonial weapons from around the Rosymorn Monastery and defeating the enemies guarding them. So to back up in time, we're going to break through that barricade with Lae'zel and go into the monastery, then turn left and go down the hallway until you get to the end of it where the hallway breaks open on the floor. We're just going to jump across here, and now we're going to go straight ahead, and you'll see that there's a door that's glowing over here. Let's switch on over to Astarion. He's a little bit better at lockpicking, and we're going to have him pick this lock. It does have a skill check of 15, so it's not very difficult, and he should be able to get through that without much of an issue. Now let's open the door, and we can go inside. When you jump over the barricade in front of the door, there's going to be a Guardian of Faith in front of us. He doesn't really care about us right now. He's guarding a weapon. So all I have to do is go to the back of the room where he's not looking. You can see that he's clearly looking the opposite direction. So while hiding, I'm going to use a sneak attack range attack to begin the battle. Unfortunately, it misses, but that's okay because the enemy is now surprised, meaning I get automatic critical hits. So I'll use another sneak attack range to take about half of his health away. Then I'll switch over to Astarion. He is going to use a sneak attack or two, whatever it takes, to finish off that enemy. Unfortunately, you don't get any experience for this, but that's okay. He was guarding one of the ceremonial weapons that we need to collect. So right over by where he was, and you'll find the Ceremonial Battleaxe on the ground. This is the second of the 3 ceremonial weapons that we need to collect. So once you have that, let's hop on through the barricade again, and then we're going to go over by the knotted roots straight across from us. Now, I would definitely recommend that you save the game because there is a fight on top of this area, and we want it to go well. So once that's done, let's hide once again, and then we're going to climb up the roots. As soon as we get to the top, we're going to use a sneak attack ranged. We should be hidden up here from the enemy, and then we're able to do some really good damage to it, also surprise it, and then we're going to be in combat. Hopefully, we get all of our other party members to stay hidden at this point. It doesn't really matter if they're seen, though. I'm just going to have Astarion use his sneak attack so that I can do some good damage on him, and then I'll go back to the Dark Urge and use my follow-up sneak attack to actually finish off this enemy. So we don't have to worry about the Ancient Giant Eagle anymore because he's out of the fight. We do still have our offhand range attack, so might as well use that because we still get automatic critical hits on this turn. So I'll use that to do some decent damage to this other eagle. And that's about all that I can do for right now. I'm going to let the other eagle take his turn, but he's surprised he won't do anything. And then it's going to be Lae'zel's turn. I'm just going to have her shoot a couple arrows over at him. We'll do some good damage, and then we will be able to go on to Gale's turn. So with Gale, I'm just going to have him save a spell slot and use Ray of Frost instead as a cantrip. It'll do a little bit of damage. It's not that big of a deal, though. If you miss, it happens quite often. Now back to the Dark Urge. I'm going to go just outside of where the enemy is looking, and then I can use my cutting action hide so that I can use my sneak attack range to do more damage to him. Watch out on the ground because there's a lot of twisting vines and you do not want to step in those, so be careful as you go around, and we want to do the same thing with Astarion, just get right out of view and then use our cunning action hide, following that up with a sneak attack, and that will end the fight. So that enemy is gone. We can now go and look inside of the eagle's nest, and there's going to be the final weapon that we need to pick up. This is going to be the Ceremonial Warhammer, so grab that from inside the nest, and then we'll keep going. Now, if you really wanted to, you could go and you could complete the puzzle in that earlier room where we had Gale use knock. However, I'm going to keep going over toward the west because there's a lot of weak enemies that we can kill and get an absolute ton of experience for taking them out. So let's keep going over toward the west, and then we're going to hop down to this lower ledge, keep going around until you can jump down into this hole over here. You want to be careful that you don't take too much damage by jumping too far down, and ultimately what we want to do is just get to the bottom. You'll probably lose about 1 or 2 HP just jumping to the bottom of this area. It's not a big deal though. There's going to be a couple of boxes over here. There's an opulent chest and a wooden trunk. The wooden trunk doesn't really have anything good in it, but the opulent chest will have some scrolls. I've either seen 2 scrolls of Blur or a scroll of haste and Melf's acid arrow, so you can kind of tell me down in the comments what was in your chest because I've seen the contents vary, which is kind of strange. So now what we're going to do is move Astarion close to this door that is locked. I'm going to have everyone hide, and then I'm going to lockpick this door. It does have a skill check of 15, again, not very difficult for us. So let's open this up, and then when the door does open, we're going to be just out of sight of the enemies in this area. A lot of them are invisible, but we're able to see them because we have that prosthetic eye from Volo. So I would recommend saving it and then use the Phalar Alluve's Shriek ability that's going to surprise all the enemies, and then anything around Astarion, which is many enemies, will take a lot of extra damage. Let's move the Dark Urge forward. He's still out of combat, so I can use a sneak attack ranged to damage this enemy and, in fact, kill him outright, getting 40 experience. And we'll get 40 experience for every kill down here, and there's a lot of enemies, so hundreds of experience are going to be ours in just a moment. We use another sneak attack range to take out another enemy nearby, and we're invisible at this point, which means that we can basically just run wherever we want to and attack another enemy. So let's go a little bit forward here, and then we're going to use our offhand ranged attack to attack another one of the enemies that is being affected by that Singing Sword Shriek ability. And we're going to attack this one that's glowing red right here, and we're going to do some good damage, getting a nice critical hit off of him. Not quite enough to kill him, however, but enough to do some serious damage nonetheless. Now, using Astarion, we're going to run forward a little bit. He still is able to take his action and bonus action, and we're going to move forward into this area, and then we're going to have him use his sneak attack ranged to attack the enemy over on the right side. And that will do some really good damage and finish him off, getting us another 40 experience for that kill. That's really all that I can do with Astarion for now. I don't want to really use a bonus action or anything, so I'll just pass the rest of his turn. All the enemies are surprised, so they can't move or act or anything, and then it's going to be my turn again. With the Dark Urge, I want to move him forward and take out this enemy that was weakened in the turn before. So let's run over, and then we're going to just use our offhand melee attack to attack this enemy and eliminate him, turning us invisible and allowing us to run away without an attack of opportunity against us. So that's all for that. Now what I want to do is to bring in Lae'zel, and she's going to join the fight. So let's move her just outside of the enemy's field of view, and then I can use a ranged attack to do some good damage against this enemy. So it took away most of its health, not quite all of it though. Her turn doesn't come up for a little bit yet, so I can't do anything with her right now. Instead, I'm going to have the Dark Urge use his sneak attack ranged while invisible to attack another enemy in this area. I'll go for the one over here that's got full health, and hopefully I can get the kill on him. But as luck would have it, it doesn't do quite enough. He's still got 2 health left. And now I'm not invisible anymore, and I can't really do anything, so I'll just kind of move out of the way of the enemies so they're not too close to me. I'm going to bring Gale up, and typically you do not want to use magic for this fight because the enemy does have something called magic allergy, which makes them a lot worse when they're around magic. And you'll kind of see that. I'll use Ray of Frost here just to finish off this enemy, but then it also freezes the ground because there's a lot of water on the ground. So now there's an icy surface to watch out for, and the enemy becomes unstable, and they can actually kind of morph or evolve into a new enemy if you leave leave them too close to that magic. So what we want to do is just finish off the enemy here. I'll have Astarion finish off that enemy, and then everything else around here is all far away, so I don't have to worry too much about them getting too close to me. They all have to dash to try to get close, but that means that they can't attack me on this turn, and I basically have this turn to eliminate these 3 enemies, or else I'm going to start taking damage. So starting off with Lae'zel, I'm going to have her jump a little bit closer to the enemy, and she's going to then run into melee range, and she's going to start going to town on them. So the game still credits her as having an extra attack from the earlier turn, so I'll have her use that extra attack, and now I get my normal attack to use, and then another extra attack. But we're not quite done yet. We can use our action surge to get 2 more attacks if we need them. Now, I didn't really need to do all of this attacking because I do have all my other party members here that could have attacked, but it was kind of fun just to let her go crazy and get all of those attacks in. So to finish off the fight, I'm just going to have Astarion use his sneak attack ranged and finish off that enemy. The fight's done. We got tons of experience for all of that. And then we want to go around this room and start to collect the things that are available to us. So starting off, I'm just going to grab Astarion. We're going to head toward the south end of the room. On the left side, there's an iron gate that we can lockpick. It has a skill check of 14. Once we get through this one, then inside there's going to be some items that you can pick up. I'm only going to grab the elixir of necrotic resistance, and then over on the other side of the room there's going to be another locked gate, and there's going to be a scroll of dark vision inside of that one. So let's open up this lock. It once again has a skill check of 14, very easy for us to break through, and then we're going to grab that scroll of dark vision. I don't use a lot of scrolls, but they do sell for quite a bit, so this thing has very little weight and it's worth 65 gold, so definitely worth picking up. Now let's go over to the north side of the room, and on the right side there's going to be a book that contains the potion of animal speaking recipe. So if you want to craft any of those potions, now you know how to. Let's go back the way that we originally came into the room, and then we can start hopping up onto these ledges. If you don't have a lot of athleticism, you can walk up on top of these boxes. That makes it so that you can actually jump up higher, and then we can jump up onto this lower level of the ledge, and we can continue up the path from here. So all of your party members should be able to make this jump. Just make sure that they do actually come up, because sometimes the computer-controlled characters don't always behave the way that you'd like them to. Continue around here, making sure to not step in any of those twisting vines. It's not a big deal though, it'll just halt you in your tracks for 6 real-life seconds while that goes away. And now we're going to continue along the path past where we destroyed all of these eagles earlier, and then keep going along until you get to the knotted roots on the other side, and you can climb down them, taking you down below. We have all 3 of our ceremonial weapons, and we've defeated all the enemies that we want to defeat around here, and we're going to go back into that room that I showed you earlier with all the pedestals. This is where we get the Dawnmaster's crest. Starting off, we're going to go over toward the northeast corner, and we're going to go up to the stone pedestal. So over here against the wall, we're going to go into our inventory, and we're going to select the Ceremonial Warhammer. This is what we got from the Eagle's Nest, and we're going to decide to place in world. We're going to put it right on top of the stone pedestal, and that will light it up. That lets you know that you've done the right thing. If you put the wrong weapon on the pedestals, then you'll get knocked down and take a little bit of damage. Let's go over to the southeast side of the room, and now we're going to select the ceremonial mace that we got from the Kobolds at the beginning of this area. Let's place that in the world right on top of that pedestal. It'll light up, and then you can go over toward the southwest side of the room. Let's go into our inventory. We're going to grab the Ceremonial Battleaxe that we got from the Guardian of Faith, and then we're going to place that in the world right on top. And that will open up that stone wall behind us, as well as give us 35 experience, and we'll also get a condition, which is actually a beneficial condition, called Morning Lord's Radiance, that will add 1 to 4 radiant damage to our weapon attacks. That will only last, though, until we do a long rest. So it's not permanent, but it is very handy. So let's go over to this pouch. We're going to open it up, and then we're going to grab that Dawnmaster's crest and read the note to the next Dawnmaster. Reading the note is important because that is what actually gets you the extra 30 experience. Okay, so now what we need to do is to head downstairs. We're going to leave this room, and we're going to jump across the little gap in the floor, and that will take us back over to where we got into the room to fight that Guardian of Faith. And we're going to turn to the right, and we're going to follow the path around, and then at the end of this path, there's a door leading to the left. Let's open up that door, and then go through it. There's a broken staircase in front of us. Go down as far as you can, and then you want to jump over to the other side of the staircase. Then we're just going to follow the path around until we get to the bottom. Once you're down here, look on the left side. You can have another perception check to find another barricaded wall. Once again, we're going to choose Lae'zel to break our way through this one. And then continue on through that now opened up wall, and you can go through the oak door on the right. When you go through here, you'll get a lot of experience points, and then you just have to go to the right and then loop your way around, and now we're going to head straight toward the west. Your guardian will talk to you. She really doesn't want us dealing with the Githyanki, but too bad for her, we're going to. On the way over on the right side, you'll see an opening in the wall and some stairs going down. Follow those around, and you can see a quest marker on your minimap that lets you know that you're going the right way, and we need to go through this door into the monastery basement, and that will actually take us into the Githyanki Creche. Once we're down in here, we'll get a lot of experience again, and then we want to switch over to Lae'zel so that she is our party member, and with her going forward, we're going to go and initiate a conversation and a cutscene against the other Githyanki down here. You can skip the dialogue, just be sure to choose the first answer of allow Lae'zel to answer. That gets you some approval, and you'll also get 300 experience when all of this is over, and that should be enough at this point to let everyone level up. So we're going to do that now. First up is Lae'zel. I'm going to keep her as a level 6 fighter for right now. She gets some more health as well as a new feat. Now there's a lot of good feats to choose from, but I'm going to go with Savage Attacker. I just think that it really works well with her as a melee fighter, and with multiple attacks every turn, I'm always making sure that I'm getting a higher attack roll by getting an automatic second chance every single time that I attack. So definitely a good thing to do with her. I'm going to lock that in and then keep going. Next up is the Dark Urge. He wants to be a level 6 rogue, but I'm not going to let that happen. Instead, I'll keep him as a level 5 rogue, and then I'm going to multi-class over toward the monk route. The reason I'm doing this is because I ultimately want him to be a shadow monk as well as a rogue. There's a lot of good synergy with that. So let's go ahead and add the monk class on, and then we're going to move over to Astarion, and we're going to then have him also switch, but we're going a different route. Instead of going to the monk route, I'm going to have him go over toward the ranger route, because I'm going to make him into a Gloomstalker ranger, and that's going to work really well for him. We get to choose a favorite enemy. There's a lot of good choices here. I'm going to choose the Bounty Hunter. Next, we get to choose a Natural Explorer ability. I'm going to go with the Urban Tracker because it gives us proficiency in Sleight of Hand. That goes really well with our rogue abilities, so let's go ahead and add that on. If you look at the bottom right corner of the screen, you'll see that when I turn on Urban Tracker, it gives me the Sleight of Hand skill. So that's how you know that we're actually adding it as one of our proficiencies that we really didn't have before. So Sleight of Hand does have a +4 now. That's really nice for us. Let's go ahead and just lock that in, and we're going to keep on going. Finally, it's going to be Gale's turn to level up. I'm going to keep him as a level 6 wizard. He does gain some health, a level 3 spell slot, and potent cantrip, so now our cantrips become much harder to evade, which is good because we sometimes have issues with Ray of Frost hitting. So we get to choose our spells. There's a lot of really good spells to choose from. In this case, I'm going to grab 2 of the spells that I believe to be the best. Number 1 is Fireball, does a ton of damage and comes in really handy for a later tough boss fight, as well as Glyph of Warding that can do a lot of damage to enemies that are tightly packed together. So let's go ahead and grab those, and then I have to actually assign them. In the spellbook, we have our prepared spells. There's 2 that I don't really need anymore. One of those is Witch Bolt, so I'm going to replace that with Fireball. And the other spell that I don't really need is Thunder Wave, so I'll remove that one, and I'm going to instead put in the Glyph of Warding. Just make sure that you have your Magic Missile, because that one really comes in handy. That's going to do it for all the level ups, and that is also where we're going to end this episode. So thank you very much for watching part 10. I really appreciate it. Part 11 is going to be the entire Githyanki Creche, and it's going to be a really fun episode, so be sure to stick around for that. Make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss it, and also if you enjoyed this episode and learned something, give me a like and let me know down in the comments. I'll see you very soon for part 11. Until then, thanks for watching and have a good day.